Language Learning Series, The Fluency Paradox of English.
Okay, let's talk about one of the most frustrating things for any English learner, that feeling of being completely stuck. You know, when you can understand just about everything you hear, but the moment it's your turn to speak, nothing. You just freeze up. Does that sound a little too familiar? You've put in all the hours, you've memorized vocab lists, you can follow along with the movie no problem, but the words just will not come out when you need them to. Well, you are definitely not alone. And the reason why this happens is actually way simpler than you think. It all comes down to how you've been learning. You see, it turns out there are two totally different ways to learn a language. And, well, most of us get stuck on that first path without ever even knowing there's a second, much more powerful one. So let's call them the information path and the transformation path. So the information path is all about collecting things, right? It's about grabbing grammar rules, vocabulary lists, little facts about the language. But the transformation path, that's about something way deeper. It's about chasing those aha moments, where something just clicks and you finally get it on a gut level. And that difference right there is the entire key to unlocking your fluency. So let's dig into the path that most people are on, the information path. I mean, it feels productive, right? But it's actually a trap that's keeping you from speaking with any real confidence. So collecting information basically means you're gathering data about English. It's things like learning a rule that says at is for locations, or memorizing a long list of phrasal verbs. You're getting all these facts, but your brain isn't really connecting them to how you'd actually use the language in a real-life conversation. And this right here is exactly where that path takes you. You just collect more and more facts, but all it does is lead to more doubt. You might recognize a word when you see it, but you don't feel sure enough to actually use it yourself. You're basically building a highway to understanding, but it just hits a giant brick wall right before you get to speaking. This quote just sums it up perfectly. You're just piling more and more facts into your brain, but you haven't given it a system for what to do with it all. It's kind of like a huge library full of amazing books, but with no catalog system to find anything. Okay, so if information is the trap, then transformation is the key. Let's take a look at how this second path completely changes the entire game. A transformation, it's that incredible feeling when a concept just suddenly makes perfect sense. It's not just knowing a rule, it's this internal shift where you finally understand why something is said a certain way. Your brain doesn't just store the fact anymore, it creates a real connection that lets you actually use it. And this path, it's the complete opposite. Transformation builds true clarity. Instead of doubt, you get real confidence. This path doesn't just stop at understanding. It goes directly to using the language. Honestly, it feels less like studying and more like you're unlocking a secret. This timeline really shows the whole process perfectly. Before that aha moment, you know the information, sure, but you can't really use it. Then, bam, you have that transformation, that click. And afterwards, you don't just know it, you can actually use it with confidence. That little moment in the middle, that's what we're aiming for. Okay, I know this might sound a little bit abstract, so let's make it super concrete. We're going to take a simple grammar rule and literally walk through the process of moving from just information to a real transformation. So here's the typical information-based way. Your textbook just says the preposition at is used for locations. Maybe it gives you a couple of examples like at the bank or at the store. It's a fact, sure, but does it really help you know when to use at instead of in or on? Not really, right? It's pretty vague.
Now, the transformation path is completely different. Instead of just looking at the word at all by itself, we're going to compare it to other similar words in very specific situations. This is how a native speaker's brain learns this stuff intuitively.
Okay, first, picture this. Someone says they are at the bed. They aren't on it, they're not under it, they're just standing somewhere near it, in that general area. Maybe they're on the phone, pacing next to the bed. So at kind of means in this nearby zone. But if they say they're on the bed, the whole picture changes. Now they're physically on top of the surface, maybe sitting on the duvet or lying down on the pillows. The difference is suddenly very clear. And finally, in bed. This is different yet again. It implies you're actually under the covers. You could be sleeping or reading or just relaxing. When a native speaker says, "I'm sick in bed today," this is the image they have in their mind. So here's the most important point. By comparing at, on, and in, Your brain didn't just learn 3 separate facts. No, it built one single, powerful system for understanding the space around a bed. And now each word actually makes the others clearer. That, oh, now I get it feeling you probably just had a second ago? That is a transformation. See? You didn't just collect another piece of information. You built a mental map that gets rid of the doubt and actually gives you the confidence to use these words correctly. So, how do you take this really powerful idea and start applying it to your own learning, like today? It's all about changing your focus from just collecting information to actively connecting it. Here's a really simple process. First, pick something that you know, but you still feel kind of hesitant to use. Second, just stop trying to memorize the rule for it. Third, go find real-world examples that contrast it with something similar. And finally, just focus on that difference between the examples until you feel that aha moment. At the end of the day, this is why it all matters so much. The goal isn't just to know more, it's to feel less doubt. That transformation is the thing that actually lets you speak, because it replaces all that uncertainty with real clarity. And when you feel sure about what you want to say, the words will just flow. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. Just think about your own learning journey for a second. What's one grammar rule or one vocabulary word that you've just been collecting as a fact? How can you go out and find some contrasting examples this week and turn that piece of information into a true transformation?